Fred's work. And Fred is an artist who has a substantial body of work, starting with his first film, at least that I'm aware of, that I've uncovered, which is from 1970, and his most recent work that he completed is 2013. And pretty radically eclectic, uninterrupted trajectory of filmmaking from the very beginning until his most recent film, and always exploring, like, just really tirelessly. And so the fact that if you know looking at his work, it's the kind of thing. So with my wife Zena, who's also here, we do a screening series in LA called Lightstruck, and we recently wanted to do a program of Betsy Bromberg's films. Betsy being a really amazing LA-based filmmaker who works exclusively in 16 millimeter. We love her work. We started looking at her films. We're like, maybe we can't just do one show. Maybe we have to do 2 shows. And then that became 3 shows because there's so much amazing stuff there. And in a way, it's not about, like, I was going to say, it's almost like you want to tell the whole story of what this filmmaker does, but that's even just scratching the surface in a way. But it's this idea that there should be a space for this stuff and an opportunity for people to see it. And that's why I was so gratified by these guys being willing to do such an extensive overview of Fred's work. Partly, Fred made a lot of short pieces, and some of them, as we were talking about when we first discussed this, almost have the quality of being these kind of experiments or sketches, or he's just exploring ideas. And as an individual piece, if you just saw one of these, say, 3 or 4 minute 16 millimeter films, as some of you who were here last night saw, on their own, they're cool, they're really interesting, but they sort of feel almost like part of a larger whole. And I think what was so cool, I'm so sorry I couldn't be here last night. I got the dates wrong, actually. How many people were here last night, actually? Is it quite a few? Yeah, okay. I already apologized to the previous night, but there's a few people that weren't here at the 5 o'clock show. I'm so sorry. I totally wrote the dates wrong on the calendar. It's completely my fault. I wasn't here last night. I was supposed to be here. Introduce the shows. But that said, you had, if you were here last night, this experience of a lot of these different interlocking pieces, I think, of Fred's sensibility, his interest, his humor, his personality. And I love that he's somebody who made these incredibly kind of formal, rigorous, exploratory films that are very much kind of challenges to perceptual phenomena and, like, how our brains work and how our brains are interpreting information we're seeing. And at the same time, there's so much kind of life and humanity and humor and personality in them. And I think you'll find that definitely in these pieces in this final of the 4 programs. This is a very strange program. I really like this program because it's a few of his weirdest visual pieces, I think. When Worlds Collude and Time's Arrow in particular, I think are very odd, interesting films. I'm not sure what I think of them. I mean, I really like them. I'm not sure what to make of them in some ways. And but that's also part of what Fred, I think, has always been interested in is not just challenging our perception, but also, as I said in the previous introduction, being very generous with the audience, knowing that he can put something out there, maybe something arcane or strange or puzzle-like, and then get a whole lot back from people who are just, like, really eager to investigate it on an intellectual level, on an emotional level, on a sort of phenomenological, even like physical level. And when before coming to New York for this, I looked at a few of Fred's other films that actually weren't in the series, because he has a lot more work besides this, and not all of them are previewable or exist in a digital preview copy or anything. And he has this one movie that he made in 1983 called This Old House. And when he sent it to me, I work at the Academy Film Archive. I take care of Fred's films at the archive. And when he sent it to me in probably 2007, I was like, so what's the deal with this movie? And he's like, I think that movie's too obscure to show anybody, really. I don't know if it really works. And he saw it as, like, too arcane or too obscure. I was like, okay, having seen a lot of his other movies, I was like, really? I gotta see this. And so I watched it at the time, and I really liked it. And I told him so. And he's like, I don't know. And then just a week ago, before coming here, I watched it again, because I thought, was that crazy? And I wish I could have brought it. We could have had a little added bonus. It's a really interesting movie. And I think you should do a follow-up of all the weird, marginal Fred movies in one program, maybe a 3-hour program. But it's such a fascinating movie, but it really felt almost like a weird skeleton key to his sensibility, because it's got a few different parts to it that are very much about engaging audience participation, like this kind of participation of perception, but also this process we have watching, I think, not just his work, but a lot of abstract or semi-abstract work, like a sort of it's like an adventure of perception into even also figuring out what we're even looking at, why we're looking at this. And I think in the first piece tonight in this selection, North Shore, this to me is a really interesting film because I'm not quite sure what we're looking at. And he's got a few films that use similar imagery to this, one of which is his final thus far movie called All or Nothing. And I don't know if you guys have any opinions on what it is we're looking at. There's some clues, but I really ultimately don't know.
I thought it was a lot of oil pooling, but
that's what I always thought too. But then I thought maybe it's a cup of coffee too. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But it's like it's more. You're not looking at a thing. You're looking at sort of a phenomenon of a thing. And that's a lot of what I think he's doing in these films, as you'll see. He'll sometimes shoot, like with Time's Arrow, the second piece, you're going to see, it's very concrete material that he's shot. And same with When the Worlds Collude, which is the third piece. Extremely figurative, concrete material that by then putting it in like really rapid, sometimes negative polarity juxtaposition with other things, it completely transforms everything. And so the things remain what they are, but also become this weird hybrid other phenomenological act or something. And so if you were in the previous program and you saw the film Here, where he's contrasting this Laurence Olivier Shakespeare movie with Méliès, and it's creating this weird, almost like Nude Descending a Staircase, Marcel Duchamp kind of painting effect of some kind of cubism, but it's also impressionistic, and it's just this collision of images that become this bizarre, interlocking, kind of surreal, but dreamlike kind of hybrid. And I think there's a lot of that in this program, as you'll see. So those are the first three, and then we'll see his notorious digital piece 1859, which, has anybody seen that before? Okay, so you kind of know what you're in for, I think. Okay. This film, he got the idea for this film. Again, if you've seen any of the other programs, you know that one thing he loves to do is to take very, very limited source material and then to just investigate it in all of these permutations, sometimes in quite simple ways, and extrapolate from that like a quite magnificent, epic, kind of involving experience. And so the most radical example of that being the film that showed last night called One, where he literally took one frame of abstract imagery from a slide he made, and by using it in different shapes and different orientations and positive and negative, essentially made an 18-minute silent movie out of this one frame of source material. And he's got a few other films that use that approach. But 1859, he had started working in digital around 2003, and by about 2007, 2008, he concocted the idea for this movie, which is taking the fake lens flare effect from Final Cut, where it's like just adding, if you want to add a fake lens flare to your movie, and it's a 30 frame long effect that the lens flare just goes like that, and it's kind of dopey looking. And he took that and he made a 10-minute long, really intense flicker film. And famously, when this showed at Ann Arbor Film Festival, when it was new, it was to a huge crowd at the Michigan Theater, and the audience kind of went ballistic, both against it and for it. And people started shouting at the screen to turn it off. And Fred was thrilled about this. Shouting to turn it off. Other people were shouting at them to shut up and that the movie was great. One person, particularly well reported by a lot of people afterward, said, yelled, "This is what they show prisoners at Guantanamo." And so it provoked this kind of riot, practically. The kind of experimental film riot you only hear about happening in the 60s. And it doesn't seem to happen anymore. I'm not suggesting we have one tonight, but at the same time, we were talking earlier about how exciting it is that a film like that, in what we might term generally recent history, 2008, could still have that effect on an audience. And what a thrill that was, and how gratifying I think that was for Fred, that he made something that animated people that radically. And so that's fun. So that'll be great. So ready yourself for that. And then we're going to finish with a piece actually that's almost never been seen, which is called All My Life, made in tribute in part to the Bruce Bailey film of the same name. And it's a piece that, it was Fred's first HD piece when he finally got an HD camera in 2009. And I remember he sent me the DVD of it when he finished it, and he's like, "Yeah, nobody wants to show this movie. I don't know." He sent it to festivals. Nobody, it just barely ever got shown. And he said, "I really like it. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but for some reason nobody wants to show it." So I was actually really thrilled that you guys really liked it, because I really like it. Fred really liked it, and maybe now is the time for this movie to be liked. It's really lovely, and really, it's very much his sensibility, but there's a wonderful kind of, intimate, kind of observational quality to it that's very sweet, and it's a really beautiful way to end these programs that you guys did. I'm again very grateful, because Fred is very important to me as a person, but also as an artist, and it's amazing to see so many people here. So, I'll hang out after if anybody wants to talk Fred. But thank you all so much for coming, and just get yourself